Hi, and welcome to Sumo Logic Metrics. Today I'm going to show you how to collect host metrics from an installed collector. Host metrics are ingested, as I mentioned, through an installed collector. If you already have a collector installed, then all you need to do is upgrade the existing collector to version 19.155 or a later version. If you do not have a collector installed, then I'm going to walk you through how to install a collector through the setup wizard or how to do it manually. So follow me. If you find yourself in the metrics page by clicking on this tab, you probably will not be able to search much because you don't have any metrics in there to begin with. So let's walk you through the first scenario of upgrading your collector. If you have collectors that require upgrade, you will find them here. If you can click on upgrade collectors, you will see a list of all the different collectors that require upgrade. You can upgrade them all at once or one by clicking upgrade all or the individual line that you want to upgrade. In my case, I'm going to show you a particular collector. I have my collector here called Mario Mac. If I wanted to add host metrics to it, if I click on add source, you will notice that it's not one of the options in here. So let's go and upgrade this collector and then we'll see that option for us. Let's click on edit and I have the ability here to upgrade my collector, and in this case I'm just going to choose the latest version. This might take a few minutes, but once this is done, I'll have the ability to ingest my host metrics. Great. With an installed collector in place, let's go back to adding a source. You can see now that host metrics is one of the options I have in here. So I can click on host metrics, and for those of you who have worked with collectors before, this should seem very familiar. So let's call my source metric source, for lack of a better word. Let's call my host server 1, and I can specify a category. Let's choose a category that is meaningful for us so that we can search our metrics afterwards. Let's call it app 1. And I'm going to copy this so I can remember this source category. All right, then we can specify how often you want those metrics to be picked up by Sumo Logic, and we'll leave the default of 1 minute, and which metrics I want to ingest. And if you expand on these, you can see all the different metrics that are found in each one of those categories, along with a little bit of a description of what each one of those metrics are. So for now, I'm going to choose a default of CPU and memory, click on save, and that's going to generate and create my new source in my environment. So if I go back and look at my Mario Mac collector, I should have a source under that called metric source, and the source category is what I had mentioned before. Okay, let's go see if our metrics are getting loaded. So now we can go back to that metrics tab and find out if we actually have some data in there. I'm going to select source category equals, and I have, I think we called it host metrics 1. I can choose that. And for metrics, why don't we choose a simple metric like CPU idle. After selecting my metric, I can hit enter and I start seeing my data being graphed on this chart. Of course, I just installed my collector, so I'm not seeing data for the other 14 minutes, but if I refresh my query through here, I can start seeing that data populate. Perhaps I want to look at some other data, let's say CPU user. I can do that, and of course the autocomplete is showing me which values are available to me. Again, I can hit enter and I can see those values for at least the last minute of data that I have in here. If I wanted to see all the metrics that start with CPU underscore, I can hit a star, and as you'd expect, I can see the different metrics, and from here I can see this is CPU idle, this is CPU user, I have CPU system, CPU load average, and you get the point. Great, I have just shown you how to upgrade your collector and get your host metric data into Sumo Logic. Let's now turn back to how to get the data if you do not have an installed collector. I'm going to walk you through how to install a collector through the setup wizard. You can access the setup wizard by clicking on this icon here, on this link, or you can also access it by going into setup wizard. I click on setup streaming data, and one of the options I have in here is host metrics. Let me click on host metrics. If I had already had an upgraded collector, I could use that to pull my metrics, or in my case, I'm going to install a brand new collector. It asks me which operating system I'm using, and then the instructions in here suggest that I open a terminal, copy this command, and paste it into that environment. So I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to paste this in here, run that command, And what it's going to do is it's going to download that collector, and then it's going to run through the installation, and then it's going to use this token that it already assigned so that it can do a handshake between my collector and the service itself. Great. It now launched my installer wizard, and it's running through the installation, and it completed. Fantastic. Now that it's done, I can go back to the UI and click on this continue button that used to be grayed out. And now it's asking me, fantastic, what source category do I want to use? In my case, I'm going to use something called host metrics. Let's call it app2. And I can choose the interval. So this is very similar to what you saw earlier with my upgraded metric. And in this particular case, why don't we choose all metrics? Why not? I can click on all of them, click continue, and it's going to start my collector communicating with the service and uploading all my data. Great, my install is complete and I can start querying my data. If I click on this, it's going to open a new tab and it's going to pre-populate that with my source category, and in particular, it's looking for a given metric. Of course, my data just loaded, so I don't have a lot of data showing. Let's give it a little bit of time. In the meantime, let's go see and find that collector that got installed. Again, the name was Mario, so I click on Mario. There is my collector, and not only did it install the collector, but it created that source for my metrics as well. So here is my metric source. Here is the source category. I can go edit it to see all the values that it selected. Remember, 1 minute interval, all the different metrics. So this all looks great. Let's go back to that metric page and see if we're now having some data. Fantastic. At least I see 1 minute's worth of data, and as the time goes by, this graph here will be filled out with my data. As before, I could choose some other metric. Perhaps I'm going to choose a metric from some other ones, like the disk used, and I can see that value in there by hitting enter, and I see my disk used in here as well. Great. So I just showed you how to install a collector using the setup wizard. What if you wanted to install that collector manually? Instead of going to the setup wizard, you'd go to collection, you'd go to add a collector, you'd specify you want an installed collector, and you would want to select what is your operating system. That will start downloading the file appropriate for your environment. From there, you launch the installer, and it's going to be very similar to what you've just experienced. The one difference is that you're actually going to have to provide some way of connecting the collector securely with the service. So for that, it's going to require an access key. To get to that access key, as I showed you, you go under your name, you click on preferences, and it's going to come to this page. You can click on this plus sign to create a brand new access key. Let's say that I'm going to creating access key for metrics in app server 5, for example. I can click on generate key. That would generate my two keys. Now the important thing about this is this only gets displayed once. So you should copy these to access ID and access key, because you're going to get prompted for those values as you're going through the installer. Once the installer finishes, you are going to have a collector very similar to this one. And at that point, you can start adding sources to your heart's content. Excellent. I hope this has been helpful for you guys. I've shown you how to upgrade a collector that already exists. I've showed you how to install a collector through the setup wizard or install it manually and start loading your host metrics through your installed collector. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.